New state.
New state, new start.
New life.
Hello and welcome. If you are new here, I am someone who loves reality TV. I like to do commentary and recaps of episodes of shows. I talk about documentaries sometimes. I talk about reality stars and what they're doing on social media. What I cannot do here on my channel is actually just put full episodes of shows. So if you have found this video because you want to watch a full episode of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup, unfortunately you're at the wrong place. I'm just going to be doing recap and commentary. If you enjoy that, I hope you'll stick around, and I encourage you to leave comments. Like, if you have any opinions about anything, leave a comment down below. That's my favorite part of doing this, is hearing what everyone else thinks. So be sure to leave a comment if you have something to say about this show. I am behind. I am several episodes behind. Episode 5 is about to air. So this video is about episodes 2 and 3. I'm going to try to keep the recaps and commentary a bit shorter about each one. But that is all. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's talk about episode 2 of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. So it starts off right where episode 1 left off. It is December 28th, 11 hours since her release from prison, and Gypsy is crying and afraid that she has violated her parole. Her stepmom, Christy, her attorney, and Ryan, they're all there trying to console her and get her to calm down. And a parole officer from Missouri ends up calling, and everything gets worked out. Ryan and Gypsy will have to head back to Louisiana the next day. But when all of this is happening, Gypsy is saying that she's going to do whatever it takes to follow their rules and do what they say. And when I was listening to her talk, all I could think of is, this girl did this her whole life. She did what her mother said. Her mother was absolutely insane, and she would do whatever her mother said. I genuinely believe that Gypsy is going to have no problems at all following all of the rules and conditions of her parole. Ultimately, it all gets worked out. They just have to leave Missouri the next morning and head to Louisiana. After that, Gypsy ends up talking to Christy, her stepmom, and Mia, her sister, about her relationship with Ryan. She shares that she was intimate with him, and then she also ends up talking one-on-one to Mia about birth control. And Mia actually, it seems like Mia goes to her to have the conversation and talk to her. And you know what? That's good. I think it's going to be important that Gypsy has a young woman who, you know, they're not just sisters, but maybe there'll be a real friendship there and they enjoy each other's company. And that's going to be someone for her to talk to about things maybe she doesn't want to talk to Rod and Christy about. So I hope they get to be a lot closer. So they are all there in Kansas City to celebrate Gypsy's release, and they also do a gift exchange. So they're sharing their Christmas gifts, and it's really nice just to watch this family moment. To me, there was nothing super eventful about this. Gypsy is just getting to have her freedom and see her family. That's what we're watching. But there is one part of this I do want to mention, and that is her dad gives her a necklace. They don't really show it up close, but it's in a box that lights up. I was able to find some similar necklaces on Amazon, and in the box it had one of those cards, or maybe on the box itself. It says stuff like, "You're stronger than you seem, braver than you think," that sort of thing. And it's specifically from a father to a daughter. And I am mentioning this for a reason. It's going to come up a little later. But when this is happening, when she is reading all of this stuff that's on the box and holding the necklace and looking at it from her dad, there's going from showing the dad to showing Ryan. And it's, in my opinion, it's because of the faces that Ryan is making. I think it seems like Ryan's, he's an all right guy, but I do think he's a bit controlling, and I think there's some jealousy there. I think he is a little bit jealous of her family, and I think they edited the show so that we could see the faces he was making. I think we were supposed to see the face he was making as it was happening. Let me go ahead. I'm going to put a photo up here so you can see it. It's a photo of Rod and Gypsy hugging. So she's hugging her dad, and then Ryan's face. They show Ryan's face as he's watching it. There's just something a little weird about him. I don't think he's creepy or anything like that. I think he seems like an all right guy, but it just seems like he's jealous of her family. But I may be reading way too much into this. You guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. So the next morning, everyone has to get up and leave because that is what they've agreed to with the parole officers. So Gypsy and Ryan head back to Louisiana. They stop and Gypsy gets some more McDonald's French fries. And of course, the paparazzi are following them. But as they're driving, they're just sitting there talking. And Gypsy says that she loves the way her new necklace from her dad looks with the sweater she's wearing. And Ryan says this.
I think this necklace looks so pretty with this
it's
sweater.
gorgeous. I just wish my name was in it.
Okay, I have to know, do you guys think his response was weird? I just wish my name was in it. I don't know if that's something I would ever say, but maybe I'm reading way too much into his actions. You guys can let me know down in the comments. I just thought it was kind of a weird response. Yeah, so let me know down below what you think. As they're going down the road, Gypsy ends up telling Ryan that Christy told her that she had gotten a text from Ken, which is Gypsy's ex-fiance. Of course, this is upsetting to Ryan, and he responds by asking if Christy respects their marriage at all. Of course, Gypsy is reassuring him that Christy does respect them and their marriage. But, it makes you wonder. Christy is keeping in contact with Ken. It just feels like something's a little off there about this whole situation. I can't blame Ryan for being like, why is she telling you this? Why is she talking to him? I can't blame him for questioning some of that. So I understand Ryan being a little bit upset about that. Of course, we know what the future holds, right? We know what the future holds for Gypsy. So I can understand Ryan not wanting to hear about Ken. Another issue is that if Ryan is already jealous of her spending time with her family and that relationship she's building with them, and then they're also continuing to talk to the ex-fiance, that's just another thing that's going to create a bigger wedge between him and her family, which puts Gypsy in a bad spot. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to move on. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think. And then finally, they make it to Louisiana. We see Ryan and Gypsy at home, and I thought it was all really sweet. When I am watching Ryan, it does seem a little weird sometimes, but the thing to remember is this is overwhelming for Gypsy, but this is probably very overwhelming for him as well. He's getting all of this attention from the media. The person he is getting to know is his wife. Like, he is literally getting to know his wife, and she's living there in their home. They've just known each other in visitations at prisons and through letters and phone calls. So this has to be overwhelming for him as well. And maybe the fact that he's now finally getting to spend time with her is a part of what is making him come off as being jealous. And I mentioned that necklace moment where she got the necklace and then his comment in the car, but he doesn't stop there. I'm going to put a clip in of him talking about her spending time with her family.
It's funny, I have been waiting a long time to be with her. So is her family. And I know they're probably a little jealous that I got a lot of her time.
I do want to give a little more context to that clip. Right before Ryan said that, right before that clip you saw, the last thing Ryan had said was, I have her all to myself. So he's really emphasizing that she is all his. And then he continues on to talk about her family wanting to spend time with her. But let's hear a little bit more from him.
I get it, and I'm okay with sharing her.
So luckily for her family, Ryan is okay with sharing Gypsy. This whole thing just feels really weird to me. Him saying he's okay with sharing her. I don't know, guys. It feels weird. Again, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but you guys let me know down in the comments what you think.
At the same time, nobody knows her quite as well as I do. She wanted me to pick her up. She wanted this. She wanted to move here with me.
So he is continuing on, and it sounds like a competition. When he is talking there, it sounds like it was a competition between him and the family regarding what Gypsy was going to do. And I'm sure there was some conflict there. I'm sure her parents were like, you know what, this isn't the best situation. She shouldn't just be jumping into a relationship. But she is a grown woman. But it sounds like for Ryan, he was competing for her.
But like her parents are planning on coming over tomorrow and spending more time with her, and I'll give them their time. It's no biggie, but that's my time too.
So it's all his time. It's all Ryan's time. He's just going to share it with her family. I don't know. I just thought that part of the show where he was talking felt really off, felt very controlling. Again, maybe he is just so excited that she's out of prison, and the way he is expressing it is odd, but I don't know. Sometimes I think I read too much into like people's facial expressions and I'm like picking apart their words. You guys let me know in the comments if I need to stop and it's not that big of a deal. Let me know what you think, because I definitely feel like it's weird. But let's keep going. We are about to go on to New Year's Eve. So let's talk about what happens during their New Year's Eve celebration. As the show continues, we get to see Gypsy trying to be more independent. She's trying to do stuff for the first time, and she's also trying to work out her past. And to be honest with you, this is the stuff I really like to watch. I'm not nearly as interested in Ryan and her relationship as I am just watching Gypsy do stuff and experiencing life for the first time. There's a moment where she talks to Christy about how Dee Dee told her that her dad was making fun of her. Like she said, Gypsy, your dad called you the R word. He makes fun of you. That's why you can't spend time with him. And she tells Christy, I've never told anyone that, but that's what, mom was saying to me. So what Dee Dee said. And Christy reassures her that that didn't happen. Like she's trying to work out what was true and what wasn't. And I'm sure there's other things she has not told people about. There's a moment in the show where they're celebrating New Year's Eve. Gypsy gets all dressed up in this glittery dress and heels, and she says, Dee Dee would never let me dress up like this or look this beautiful. Imagine being 30 years old and just then being able to say, I can put on this dress and feel beautiful, and I've never been able to do that before because I was in prison, or I was in the prison that my mother created. Like that's wild. I cannot imagine what she is feeling as all of this is happening. The only part of this that bothers me is when she overshares a little bit. Like there's the part of this where she talks about getting lingerie. That wasn't a big deal, but then she sort of starts talking about, her experiences in prison and being intimate with Ryan. She doesn't go into details, but I still wonder if in the future she's going to regret sharing that much. And I can tell you, at least speaking for myself, I'm not super interested in hearing that at all. Actually, I'm not. I'm not even super interested. There's no interest. She doesn't have to share that. There's plenty here on the show without knowing all of those details. I just wonder if we could, jump years into the future, if she's going to look back on this and sort of regret sharing some of the more personal and private things. Okay, let's talk about that New Year's Eve celebration. It is Gypsy, Ryan, Christy, and Rod. They're all there together at Gypsy and Ryan's home. They have dinner together. Gypsy has a steak for the first time. I thought that was pretty exciting. And then, she's all dressed up. She's wearing this glittery dress and heels, and she dances with her dad. And Rod says something interesting. He says he never thought he would dance with her when she was standing. He always thought she was in a wheelchair, so he never thought they would get to dance together like that. And then Gypsy says she never thought she would dance with her dad because she never thought he would be in her life. So this, for them, they never imagined this sort of experience together. I just thought it was really nice. With her being on parole, she's not going out partying. She still has to follow all of their conditions and everything. The media also would have been all over them, as well as anyone who could whip out their cell phone and take a video. So I think they made a really good choice choosing to spend their New Year's Eve together in their home. And before I move on, I do want to point out that none of this would have happened without the generosity of Ryan, because he was willing to share Gypsy Rose with her family. Because as Ryan pointed out, they can have their time, but it's his time too. After the holiday, we see Gypsy and Ryan alone together. They're just adjusting to their new life. Gypsy talks about wanting to be more independent, and she says that she is always dependent on someone. It was her mom at first. She had her mom do everything for her. Then she went to prison where everything was organized and she knew what to do and it was all there for her. She does not want to do that with Ryan. She wants to be independent. She also talks about the fact that she has never been alone. She says not a single day in her life. She has never ever been alone, and she is worried about what it will be like when Ryan goes back to work. She thinks getting a puppy will help her when Ryan is gone. But Ryan's not a fan of this idea. And honestly, I cannot blame him. But here's the thing. When they're talking about it and Ryan is expressing his concerns, he does it in a way that makes Gypsy feel like he is speaking to her as if she is a child. And honestly, he is sort of talking to her in that way. He's doing that thing where parents are like, it's a lot of responsibility. You'll have to walk the dog and feed it and take care of it. And you shouldn't get it if you're not able to do those things, which is 100% true. But as an adult, you don't need someone to tell you that typically. And Ryan is doing that to Gypsy. My angle with Gypsy having a dog is that it's just not the right time. She just got out of prison. She's filming this show. She's going to be going on a press tour, doing interviews. Getting a puppy, it just seems like something that should happen when her life has settled. I think that's what he should have been saying to her instead of telling her that she's going to have to feed the dog like she's a child. So, of course, Gypsy gets upset about this. She doesn't want him to talk to her like that, and they end up having a disagreement. I do want to put in a clip of Gypsy talking about people treating her like a child because I thought this was kind of interesting. Here's Gypsy.
Just because I have not experienced something, that attributes to being childlike. And for me, it's not.
So that's Gypsy talking about how people perceive her to be childlike because she hasn't experienced things, and she says that it's just not true. Because of this, she's very sensitive to how people talk to her, and she doesn't want to be treated like a child. Ryan ends up going out and he apologizes to her and he acknowledges that this is something she's very sensitive about. She's not a child. She doesn't want to be treated that way. He also shares some of his vulnerabilities and he says that he has a fear of being abandoned because of things that have happened in his past. And you can see when you're watching this, Ryan is pretty darn clingy. So I think there really is probably an issue for him there. And that is where this episode ends. So it ends with Gypsy wanting a dog again. I think it's a timing issue. Just let life settle a little bit before you're, trying to train a puppy and have this new little creature in your home. Go through all the press stuff before you bring a dog into it all. So that is my comments and opinions and recap of episode 2. You guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. All right, let's talk about episode 3, which is titled, Is This My Life? We are 6 days after her release. So she hasn't even been out of prison a week. And we are already they have made 3 episodes out of that 1 week. It starts out with Ryan thanking Gypsy for sticking up for him on social media. Everyone is putting him down, saying rude stuff about him. And they're doing this on one of his Instagram posts. Gypsy gets tired of it, goes onto the post and makes a comment. She says that Ryan has been rocking her world every night. Now, we all know about her comments, this stuff she said online during interviews, because that stuff went viral. It was everywhere. So we've heard about this before, but what we don't know is that when they're talking about it at home, she is also bringing up her ex. Gypsy makes a point of saying that she thinks her ex is probably reading that comment. So she's bringing up her ex already, just 5 minutes into the show. And this is something that just keeps happening again and again. Ken has not left the picture. She definitely has her ex-fiance on her mind. So in this episode, we see Ryan and Gypsy getting ready to head to New York. They are going to be doing a press tour. But before they go, Gypsy has to meet with her parole officer. And they've actually scheduled this all to happen on the same day. So she has to have this meeting with the parole officer, and then they are literally heading to the airport from there. So they have all of their suitcases and everything in the van ready to go. And Ryan is just sitting out there waiting while she's in this meeting. Of course, the meeting takes much longer than they expected because they have to do a lot of intake paperwork. They have to do fingerprinting. It's just taking a long time because there's stuff they have to do, and they end up barely making it to the airport. So Ryan is starting to freak out. They're headed that way, and then Gypsy gets a phone call from the media relations rep, and the person on the phone is telling her, you can't check your bags. You're going to just have to take carry-ons. You're not going to have time to be checking a bag. So Gypsy's on this phone call, and she's sort of saying out loud what the person is telling her. And Ryan hears it. And Ryan is just not having it. But the dude is really freaking out about not getting to the airport. I think he's like, the anxiety is making him sort of angry. He's just freaking out. Let me put a clip in so you guys can see it.
It's like, what do you want us to do?
I know. All right, we're going to do the best we can.
No, we're not.
All right, I will.
No, we're not.
Okay, bye.
I think Ryan is just freaking out and not thinking clearly. I mean, they're going to New York, and there's one point where he says, we only have one pair of clothes. And I'm like, you're in New York. I mean, if you need to, you could probably get some clothes, I would think. And then he also says his meds are in his checked bag. That seems surprising to me. When I travel, if there's something I want with me, I usually make sure that's on my carry-on or in my carry-on. So I'm just surprised that he would choose to put his medicine in his checked bag. I don't know. I think he's just panicking. Later in this episode, he says he was freaking out, but Gypsy was able to calm him down. They do end up making it to the airport. It is a tense ride, but they get there, they get to the flight, and they do the GMA interview. They also appear on The View, and right before she goes on The View, there's this moment where she's getting her makeup done, and she talks about how she can't believe this is her life, because before this, her mom controlled everything. What she wore, if she could wear makeup or not, how her hair was, everything was controlled by her mom, so she cannot believe that this is all happening. And then we get to see her go from interview to interview, and Ryan talks about how he cannot believe that Gypsy Rose is his wife, and when he's watching her, he's thinking that, I can't believe this is my wife. She chose me. The last interview they show Gypsy doing is for a podcast. And during the podcast, she brings up Ken a bit. Actually, quite a bit. She talks about how the media attention got to him, and then he couldn't take it and broke off the engagement, and she was heartbroken. And then she continues to talk about him more. Again, it's just very clear in this episode, Ken is on her mind, and she just keeps bringing him up. You can tell that it does bother Ryan. I can't blame Ryan for being upset about any of this. I can't blame him if he is even more upset because it's happening during interviews out in the public. It just seems like she's really not over Ken. And so I can understand why Ryan doesn't want to hear about it. After all of these interviews, they get to just go out and explore New York, and they head out to Times Square where this moment happens.
Can you believe we're actually in New York?
I know.
I'm gonna love on you in here.
I have learned from watching this show that sometimes public displays of affection make me cringe. Specifically when it's Ryan and Gypsy. I cannot put my finger on what I don't like about it. It's not like it's anything bad. I don't want to say like, oh, they shouldn't be doing this. But there's just something I don't want to see it. I don't know. You guys can let me know if you feel the same way in the comments. So they're walking around Times Square. People start recognizing them. Gypsy says that she feels a bit uncomfortable. And then after this, it switches over to Gypsy and Ryan back at the hotel, and they talk about how this is what they were waiting for. Like when she was in prison, they were waiting for the day that they might get to go and travel together and spend time together. So they are just living the life they want. She even says it feels like she was dropped into a scene of a movie. So she is really happy. Gypsy also discusses the fact that she has never dealt with money before or had to pay for things, and Ryan talks about it as well. So this is something she's going to have to learn to do. And there's a voiceover during this part where Ryan says he worries about what it will be like for her to have to adjust to regular life. When all this hype is over and the honeymoon phase is done, how is Gypsy going to adjust to a normal life? I think Ryan is afraid that when things settle down, she's going to look at their relationship more. Like right now, they're all caught up in everything going on. She's not really dealing with the fact that she still has feelings for Ken. But when things settle down, she's going to have time to really go, oh, am I happy? Is this working for me? So I think that's what he needs to worry about. After the New York trip, they head home. We get to see Gypsy and Ryan over at his family's house. So we get to see his parents. You know, everyone was just so darn happy at that dinner. Like, Gypsy looked really happy. Ryan did as well. She seems to get along with his family. It was just a really nice dinner. While they're there, Ryan does get a call from his work. He is a special ed teacher, and they want to make sure he's actually returning to his job. You know, he's suddenly sort of famous, and they want to be sure he's really coming back to work. He says that he is. He has to keep his job. He says there was only one negative call from a parent, but otherwise, everything has been okay. I will tell you, the show jumps around a lot. Like, this episode, we're in a lot of different places. So she has this dinner with his family. Then it flips over to another day where we see them going to look at wedding venues. You know, they got married when she was in prison, so they want a second chance to have a real wedding and celebrate with the people they love. So they look at a wedding venue and they seem to like it. But then from there, it ends and we see them back at home. They're sitting there talking together, and Gypsy has just finished her first therapy session. Going to therapy is a condition of her parole. You know, if she doesn't go, she is violating her parole and could go back to prison. Like, she has to do all of this stuff. So she has went to this first therapy session, and she says she really got a lot out of it. And she's able to talk to the therapist about, you know, social media and her presence on social media and all the pressure she's feeling. So I think this is going to be like a good place for her to go talk to someone and deal with all of that. They also put an emphasis in this episode on the fact that there's starting to be a shift in how people feel about her. You know, everyone was so excited for her to be released and there was so much support, but then there was this overexposure and people started to dislike the things she was doing, and there seemed to be some backlash. And it's really just because of the situation. You see this young girl, she was a victim, she was abused, but then she played a role in the death of her mother. And while we do want to celebrate in some ways that she's moving on and having a new life, how much do you really celebrate that? You know, she was a victim, but there was also, like, her mother was a victim as well. So you have this conflict there. It's not surprising that there's backlash. I mean, people have mixed feelings about her being released. So I think she may have taken the wrong approach to social media. You know, all that support when she was released, then when that calmed down, people were going to question, is this how we should really be talking about her? Is this the way we should feel about her release? And we see that during this episode. As the show comes to an end, we see Gypsy and Ryan talking again. It's clear she's starting to feel the pressure from social media. You know, again, there was that attitude shift. There was starting to be some backlash, and it's getting to her. She tells Ryan she wants a normal life. She wants to have a normal job. She wants to know people because they really know her, not because they recognize her. So she's starting to want to live a more calm life. And Ryan is telling her, you know, that wedding venue, they need us to put down a deposit in 2 days. And Gypsy says, I don't even want to do that right now. I want to do that when I'm in a different place. This isn't the time for that. And you can tell that Ryan is disappointed. So that is where this episode ends. You know, there was a lot of stuff happening and it sort of shifted a lot, you know, from the New York interviews to the wedding venues to finding out she's going to therapy to dealing with social media. There's a lot in this episode. I enjoy seeing the dynamics between her and Ryan and watching this all unfold. Of course, we know the outcome of this, but we're getting to see what actually happened. But it's not my favorite part. I said this when I was talking about episode 2. My favorite part is just watching Gypsy, like, experience new stuff. That's the part of this I like. I'm really going to look forward to seeing her gain some independence. I hope we see her form some friendships and stuff outside of Ryan. You know, I hope we see more of her being independent from him. Right now, it feels like Ryan is the closest person to her, but it sort of feels like she's not got a lot of other relationships. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that happening. You guys can let me know in the comments what you thought. I'm going to be catching up this week again by talking about episode 4 and the upcoming episode, which is episode 5. So if you haven't already, please click like and subscribe. I hope you'll come back here to Happily Ever Reality.